power, the kind of destructive force. And we have a man who's grossly incompetent, who's representing us. And if you look at the leaders of the world, these people are at the top of their game. President Xi and Kim Jong-un, and I could name almost every country. But we have somebody that's not at all. But while stating twice this week, as an example, that Russia is losing the war to Iraq. Twice. Now, you can make mistakes on occasion. Even Lindsey down here, Senator Lindsey Graham, we love Senator. We're gonna love him. We're gonna love him. I know, it's half and half, but when I need some of those liberal votes, he's always there to help me get them, okay? We got some pretty liberal people, but he's good. We know the good ones, we know the bad ones too. We got some real bad ones. But even he makes mistakes on occasion. But you can't make a mistake by calling Ukraine Iraq. And then you certainly can't do it a second time because there's something wrong. With the help of everyone here today, we're going to win the South Carolina primary 7 months from now. Big. And on election day 2024, we are going to evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House. We're going to bring our country. We are going to take back our country. We're going to make America great again. That's what we need. Make America great again. The fake news media has finally started to admit what we all knew. Joe Biden is the most corrupt president in American history by far. It's not even close. He's a criminal and a liar who sold his office to foreign countries and many other people. You take a look at what's going on. All of the stuff goes into the stuff he calls it, goes into family pockets. And it comes from many cases very bad third world actors, and nobody thought they were going to get caught with all of their phony corporations that they set up. The only problem is those people don't like to report on it, but they're actually having to start. It's very interesting. I'm just not sure I want to run against anybody else. I sort of like this one. And by the way, we're leading him by a lot. But just think of the massive Biden corruption unveiled in the past few weeks alone. According to Representatives James Comer and Jim Jordan, who are doing a fantastic job, by the way, at least 9 Biden family members were paid vast sums of money through 20 different shell companies for no legitimate reason at all. They can't figure it out. While Crooked Joe was vice president, he was using that as a cash machine. In addition, we learned the FBI has explosive evidence that Joe Biden took bribes from Ukraine, yet the corrupt FBI is out of control. Not only covered it up, they stayed silent while crazy Nancy Pelosi, little Adam Schiff, how about that beauty? Little Adam Schiff. And the radical Democrats impeached me, they impeached me. But that was just the beginning, because they also indicted me a couple of years later for asking questions about the Biden bribery scam. Just happened to ask. It turned out I was right. This is a sick nest of people that needs to be cleaned out and cleaned out immediately. Turned out I was right. It turned out I was right. I had to go through 2 impeachments and I was right on both of them, and it's been proven, and especially with the laptop from hell, it's been proven. It's been right there, right in front of their eyes. Last week, an IRS whistleblower revealed that Crooked Joe sat in a room while his son Hunter messaged a Chinese Communist Party top official, and he said, I quote, "I am sitting here with my father, Sleepy Joe, and we would like to," and by the way, he may not be as sleepy as we thought, based on all this stuff. "And we would like to understand, with the commitment made, what has happened? Why has it not been fulfilled? Why haven't you sent us the money? Tell the director that I would like to resolve this right now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. I didn't know he was a tough guy. They are with our money. They're not with our nation because they're giving it away to other countries. And if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, top person, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, that's Dad. Hi, Dad. Remember, said he was the smartest person he's ever met. By the way, at some time does Joe Biden say, you know, there's some things just not working out very well. At some point, but it won't matter if the press doesn't catch it. Remember that. But the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, you will regret not following my rejection and direction. I'm sitting here waiting for the call, and he says he wants it right now. I'm sitting waiting for the call with my father. Within 10 days, the Bidens collected $5.1 million from China for no reason whatsoever. They didn't do anything. Once again, Trump was right. Trump was right. They have these hats. Trump was right about everything. I don't know about everything, but we were right about a lot, Marjorie, right? A lot. Joe Biden is corrupt, and Joe Biden is a very compromised president. He's being paid off just like a common criminal gets paid off, just a more sophisticated manner and much larger numbers. But he's totally protected by the Department of Injustice and by the fake news media, which has been weaponized to a degree we have never ever seen before. This is a crime 100 times bigger than Watergate, and they just don't want to write about it. When I get back in office, I will appoint a real special prosecutor to investigate every detail of the Biden crime family of corruption. So incredible. And again, out of respect for the office of president, I would never be talking this way, even knowing a lot of this stuff. I have too much respect for the office. But once they do what they did to me and to you, by doing what they did, so corrupt, I said, now the gloves are off from that standpoint. What they've done is so corrupt. So I'll speak differently than I would have 3 weeks ago. Because you never heard me use this kind of language. I wouldn't want to, out of respect for our country and for the office, but we really have no choice. These people are sick. They're sick people. But despite all of this, they go after me for the Presidential Records Act. Well, that's what they should be looking at, because everything I did was under the Presidential Records Act. We have a thug prosecutor named Smith, Jack Smith. He's a thug. He's had many losses. He's destroyed many lives, and they put him in charge. In the meantime, what about Biden's records? This guy has 1,850 boxes. He has boxes stored in Chinatown in D.C., rough place, by the way. He has them stored at Penn, where China's paid them almost $100 million. China paid almost $100 million. And nobody wants to even talk about that. He took classified information when he was a senator. And even Democrat senators say you can't do that. Charging a former president of the United States under the Espionage Act of 1917. Espionage, espionage. As Putin said, you are the most vicious president ever. There's never been a president that did this to me, and yet I got along with him. Isn't that nice? Don't forget, I ended his pipeline. First day, I ended it. I said, no more pipeline. In the middle of construction. Biden came in and he approved it. I gave javelins, remember this? I gave javelins to Ukraine. They were the anti-tank missiles, and they knocked the hell out of Russia. But I got along with Putin, and it's good to get along with people on the other side. It's very good. The Espionage Act of 1917 is an act for a crime so heinous that only the death penalty would do, is one of the most outrageous and vicious legal theories ever put in an American court of law. There's never been anything like this. And by the way, almost all other presidents took the documents with them. You look at Barack Hussein Obama. Did anyone ever hear of Barack Hussein? Put him to death! The Bushes took documents. Jimmy Carter took documents. You don't like Bush? Yeah, I don't understand that. He got us into the Middle East, didn't he, huh? Got us into the Middle East. $10 trillion, that's right. No more war unless we need it. We have the greatest military now in the world. They rebuilt it. Of course, we shouldn't have given $85 billion worth to Afghanistan, losing 13 great soldiers, leaving Americans behind. That's what showed the weakness, and that's one of the reasons, I think maybe a primary reason that Putin went in and that President Xi of China is talking pretty big. The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping documents. As a president, the law that applies to this case is not the Espionage Act. It's vicious, never used before. It's only been used on me over boxes that I'm allowed to have. The Espionage Act, but the Presidential Records Act, which is not even mentioned in this horrible and vicious and stupid, according to very talented lawyers, 44-page indictment, under the Presidential Records Act, which is a civil situation, not a criminal law. I had every right to have these documents, personal belongings and boxes. I had absolute right to have them. Joe Biden didn't, and Mike Pence didn't, and neither did certain other people that weren't presidents, because they were not covered by the Presidential Records Act of 1978, relatively new compared to others. But these scoundrels and thugs in our weaponized government are corrupt, just like the president is corrupt. So they decided only to come after me. Only to come after me. It's an amazing thing. It's called election interference, and it's backfired on them. Because my poll numbers are much higher now than they were 4 months ago. And we were still leading by a lot. But now we're really leading. A lot of people are going to start dropping out. Watch, they're in a solid one. One of them had a 0 with an arrow to the left. What does that mean? Can you have a 0 with an arrow pointing left? That means they got less than 0. I guess it's probably a double voter. These people that vote 2, 3, 4 times, I guess. They have 0 with an arrow pointing left. The crucial legal precedent is laid out in the most important case ever on this subject, known as the Clinton socks case. You know why? Because he took things out in his socks. Bill Clinton. After leaving the White House, Bill Clinton kept 79 audio tapes in his socks and his sock drawer. Unusual place, right? Of these tapes, some of the most important conversations in government were had. Talk to the leaders of many, many big and great and strong countries, enemies of ours, a lot of them. Not only was Bill Clinton never even considered for criminal prosecution based on the tapes, and all of the other things he took, but the tapes in particular, they were brutal. But when he was sued for them in a civil case, he won the case. In other words, they said he could do it. Judge Amy Berman Jackson's decision states, I quote, under the statutory scheme established by the Presidential Records Act, the decision to segregate personal materials from presidential records is made by the president during the president's term and in his sole and complete discretion. You getting this? In other words, it's a phony deal. Any normal administration, even an opposing one, would consider that to be the end of the case, but not the corrupt Biden regime, because they want to do this for election interference. He's getting his ass kicked in the polls, and he needs to do this for election interference, which is their new form of cheating. It's actually a pretty old form, but it's new to this country to the extent that they're doing it. The Sox decision also states, quote, the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, radical left group. NARA has the Constitution flagged, red flag, you know that? And they have not only the Constitution red flag, they have the Bill of Rights, because they say that they're dangerous documents. This is what we're dealing with. But they don't have the authority to designate. Think of it. NARA does not have the authority to designate materials as presidential records. They're the ones coming after me. NARA does not have the tapes in question, and NARA lacks any right, duty, or means to seize control of them. This is the decision of the judge. The president enjoys unconstrained authority. This is, again, the decision of a respected judge to make decisions regarding the disposition of documents. Neither the archivist nor Congress has the authority to veto the president's decision. In other words, the president alone, not the vice president, not allowed, not other officers, and not the senators. When he was a senator, he took a lot of classified information, and you're not allowed to do that. The Presidential Records Act does not confer any at all mandatory or even discretionary authority on the archivist to classify records. Under the statute, just to finish up, this responsibility is left solely to the President of the United States, not all these other people that say, oh, he kept some documents. What I do legally. In other words, whatever documents the President decides to take with him, he has the absolute right to do so. That's the law, and it couldn't be more clear. I don't think it could be more clear than that. Even the New York Times, of all papers, in a major article said that when it comes to asking for documents, I guarantee you this reporter got fired, from the former presidents, the only power that NARA has is to say, pretty please, this is the Times, pretty please, could we have them? Quote, asking nicely is about all they can do, and yet they reported me to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. So there it is. Nothing like this has ever happened. The Espionage Act has never been used before. These are sick people. These are degenerates that are running our country, and our country's going to hell. And I just might add briefly, right next door, because these are all Democrats and they're all in total contact. They're in total contact with the Justice Department. That includes Manhattan. That includes Atlanta, Georgia, one of the most unsafe per capita places anywhere in this country. It's number one or number two. Worse than Chicago. You don't know that people are leaving Atlanta, and we loved Atlanta, we loved Georgia. We did great in Georgia. Unfortunately, bad things happen. We can't let any of that stuff happen again, and we're not gonna let it. But right next door in Georgia, the racist district attorney goes after me for a perfect phone call, even more perfect than the call I made to Ukraine, even more perfect. She's got the worst per capita crime record in the country. Murderers, think of this, murderers are allowed to get away with murder. They're allowed to get away with murder. They don't even go after them. The only one they go after is Trump. Let's see, didn't he have a phone call? And when you think about that call, many lawyers were in that call. That was a call made when I was president, and I was protesting the election results in Georgia. And they had many. They had Secretary of State on, Raffensperger. And they had many lawyers on the call, some ours, but many of them theirs. Not one person protested that call. There was no problem with that call. They didn't say, sir, I'm sorry, please rephrase. It was only a long time afterwards. They said, let's see, Trump made a phone call, didn't he? Well, we actually made another one that was so perfect that they refused to even show it or report it, but we have a copy of it. It was a perfect call. These were perfect calls. These were calls where you're questioning the validity and the safety of elections. And it's a disgrace that they're allowed to even think about it. But not one person protested until long after that call. And if there was something wrong with that call, I am not a stupid person. Number one, I'm an honest person, so I wouldn't do it anyway. But when people are on the phone, including many lawyers, do you think many people were on that phone? Many people. Do you think I'm going to say what they'd like to have? But the problem is, it's not borne out. I will tell you what is borne out. The call was supposedly taped in the state of Florida. And in Florida, you're not allowed to do, that's a two-party state. In other words, you're not allowed to tape phone calls. They tape the phone call to show you how nice they are. They tape the phone call, and you're not allowed. So that is the real crime here. They had a two-party state with somebody taping the call, supposedly from Florida. The Bidens took in millions and millions of dollars from Ukraine, from Russia, and from China. And now Joe has given China the green light as they open up, not even believable, military installations in Cuba just 90 miles off our coast. Think of that. And that will end as soon as I'm president. China will be leaving. They will be leaving. And we have a very good relationship. You didn't hear about Taiwan, and you didn't hear about Ukraine from Putin during my 4 years. They say, how do you know? Because that would have never happened. They say, how do you know? They say, because number one, it never happened. It was never even discussed. They knew better. Joe Biden's policy is China first. My policy is very simple, America first. And by the way, is everybody warm enough? Are you sure? But this is South Carolina. We're used to nice, beautiful, warm weather. How about Joe when he's in Florida and he goes, it's really nice to be in New Hampshire. They got palm trees up. Or when he was in Ohio. No, how about Iowa? Well, actually the best happened to be when he said last couple of days what he was saying about Ukraine and Iraq. But when he's in a certain state, many times he's gotten it wrong. It's wonderful to be in Iowa, sir. It's Idaho. Oh, Idaho. They grow potatoes in Idaho, right? No, we got a man who's grossly incompetent, and he could get us into World War III. And this will not be a war like army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. These are weapons so powerful, it's obliteration. He shouldn't be there, shouldn't be there for a lot of reasons, but he shouldn't be there just based on his competence. And tell him to take the cognitive test. That would be an interesting. Set a record for an all-time. I took it. You know, they said Trump is vicious and he's brilliant and he wants to take over the world, and that wasn't working. Then they said Trump is this, Trump is that. Then they said, well, Trump's, let's see. Oh, he must be stupid. Oh, he's stupid. So when I heard that, I said, let me take the cognitive test, and I did. Given and administered by a whole lot of doctors, and Dr. Ronnie Jackson of Texas, who is now a congressman, was an admiral, great. And as he said to everybody, Trump aced it. I aced it, I got him all right. And you know, I never heard the stupid stuff anymore, so that one disappeared. So I think Biden should take it. That way he can get rid of that. Yes. They can get rid of that little statement about him being not so smart. Despite the Biden's flagrant corruption, the weaponized Department of Injustice interfered to block the investigation against Joe and Hunter, stopped felony charges, and even secretly tipped off Hunter. This just came out recently about a search of his storage units, just a little different than what they did with the gun-toting FBI agents when they raided Mar-a-Lago. Well, Joe Biden used the DOJ to cover up his own crimes. He ordered his top political opponent, me, arrested. They arrested me right in the middle of our presidential election, which Joe Biden is losing by a lot. They rigged the presidential election 2020. We're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024. Never forget, our enemies want to stop me because I am the only one who can stop them. If these corrupt persecutions of our people succeed, they will complete the takeover of this country. This country will be taken over by these lunatics and destroy your way of life forever. And you know, when that happens, there's no coming back. It'll be gone. Communism, remember I used to use the word socialism? They passed that station a long time ago. Communism, they're fascists, Marxists. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. I will never let them. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. And I just happen to be standing in their way. So and it's no wonder the swamp is getting truly desperate, because as we do better and better and our poll numbers rocket, they get more and more vicious. They have all these vicious thugs, these vicious, horrible thugs. In the new premise poll, We are at 59%, and that's with all of these people running. We have a massive lead in the Siena poll. We're at 61%. The Republican primary vote against, how many people are running now? Every day it gets bigger and bigger. In the Harvard-Harris poll, we're leading by 45 points. In another poll, by a pollster who I just spoke to in the back, we're up 61 points on everybody. 61. That's a lot. In the National Public Affairs poll here in South Carolina, we are leading by many, many points. In fact, so many points they didn't even want to put out a number. They said whatever the hell it is. And you have, as you know, Tim Scott, who happens to be a good man, by the way. You have Tim Scott and you have Nikki Haley. But leading by so much that people don't even want to put out the numbers, they don't even believe. And we're leading Biden by many, 6% in the Harvard-Harris poll. Remember, you would hear 6% is up for a Republican, that's considered a landslide. Because they start off, number one, they start off cheating like hell, okay, forget that. But they start off with lots of people that I don't think are going to vote for them anymore, like unions, like